Kamala Harris undermines Joe Manchin and potentially the administration's COVID relief bill. The recall Gavin Newsom movement gets new ammo, and Elizabeth Warren calls for new market regulations after the Gamestop stock fiasco. These stories and more on your February 1st Not So News update. Starting us off, we have an interview with Joe Manchin after the Vice President Kamala Harris did an interview in a local West Virginia news station. We get the following quote from The Hill. Speaking with NBC affiliate WSAZ, the centrist Democrat said the vice president's interview was not a way of working together and called on the White House to find a bipartisan pathway forward. I saw the interview. I couldn't believe it. No one called me about it, Manchin said, according to WSAZ. We're going to try to find a bipartisan pathway forward, but we need to work together. That's not a way of working together. Harris had given the interview to push for a White House coronavirus relief proposal. To your point, in West Virginia, 1 in 7 families is describing their household as being hungry, 1 in 6 can't pay the rent, and 1 in 4 businesses are closing permanently or have already closed. So it's a big issue in West Virginia and across the country, Harris told WSAZ. That's why the president and I are offering the American Rescue Plan. This puts Manchin in a bit of a tricky situation. As a Democrat moderate senator, he was most likely highly involved in working with the GOP senators in attempts to get a bipartisan bill, and this really just tricks up the situation of having any type of moderate proposal between the two groups. Next, from ABC, we see that there was an anti-vaccine protest that temporarily shut down vaccine distribution in LA. From ABC News, we get the following. The Los Angeles Fire Department shut the entrance to vaccination center at Dodger Stadium about 2 p.m. as a precaution, officials told the newspaper. The protesters had members of anti-vaccine and far-right groups, the Times reported. Some of them carried signs decrying the COVID-19 vaccine and shouting people should not get the shots. There were no incidents of violence, the Times said. Notably, all the violence over the summer was able to shut down multiple businesses, but those were also mostly peaceful. So these seem like similar standards being held. Next, also in California, we see a new call for Gavin Newsom to try and open up the schools. This comes after there's been a lot of calls for a recall Gavin Newsom movement. And a lot of the school arguments has been that the COVID and coronavirus death rate hasn't really been affecting children as much. And really the pushback is coming from unions rather than from the populace. So from Politico, we see the following. The governor's frustration appeared to be tied to that reality. Education and childcare workers are eligible in the first tier of Phase 1B, which the state has activated. But Newsom 2 weeks ago added residents over 65 to that tier, and counties and health priorities have so far prioritized seniors over teachers, noting the older population's greater health risk and an easier screening process for age. State public health officials have estimated that it could take until June just to reach Californians 65 and older. The governor has proposed having the youngest students in transitional kindergarten through 2nd grade return on February 16th, but state lawmakers, school administrators, and teachers unions have thus far balked at this reopening plan, which requires legislative approval, and that date seems nearly impossible to reach now. Finally, last update on coronavirus stuff comes from The Hill, where Biden coronavirus advisor says we have to call an audible on vaccine distribution. Starting us off, we have Michael Osterholm, a Biden transition team advisor on the coronavirus, said on Sunday the country has to call an audible in regards to COVID-19 vaccine distribution, warning a new surge caused by the UK variant is likely to occur in the next few months. Continuing later, we see the epidemiologist said the new variant from the UK would cause a surge in the next 6 to 14 weeks. And if we see that happen, which my 45 years in the trenches tells us we will, we're going to see something like we have not yet seen in this country, Osterholm said. I think at this point, I haven't heard praise for how the U.S. has handled the pandemic since, we haven't heard anything of a U.S. variant in the coronavirus. So, maybe we're doing some good for the rest of the world. Getting us off coronavirus, there is a story from Defense One stating, if Austin is serious about preventing sexual assault, why is Hyten still vice chief? This is regarding a new directive made by Lloyd Austin, who just started working in the command under Biden, and how one of his members is wrapped up in a sexual assault claim. From Defense One, we see the following. As background, General Hyten was never cleared in an Air Force investigation of 9 alleged incidents of unwanted sexual conduct. Materials produced in the investigation should suggest that investigators did not reach a conclusion about whether he had assaulted her, leaving it to senators to make a judgment call, the Washington Post reported. The allegations were serious enough that Kamala Harris, the senator, now vice president, voted against confirming the general for the vice chairman position, but the Air Force general put in charge of the case, an acquaintance of Hyten's, who was junior in rank to him, decided not to press charges. Colonel Spellstodders received the Legion of Merit when she retired, a clear signal that Army leaders disagree with the Air Force's claim that Hyten was innocent. I just want to make sure that we're very clear here about what's going on here. Bringing up the question of Hyten should be fired for sexual assault claims without there being clear evidence that he did commit the assault really makes us question whether that same standard should be held for our commander-in-chief. You remember that there were multiple sexual assault allegations against President Biden, one of those prominently being made by Tara Reade. In the US, we have a legal principle, though, that you're innocent until proven guilty. In a briefing, we were told that Hyten was not cleared of the sexual assaults, implying that there was no evidence he committed the crimes either. The same standard should be held for him as we hold the commander-in-chief. Next, the Washington Post had a story that guns are white supremacists' deadly weapon. We must disarm hate. They're paywalls, so we couldn't read the actual story. But getting into this makes us wonder, how much of guns is really a white supremacist issue? From the Pew Research Center, they had a poll done in 2017 that looked at the breakdown of gun ownership by race, where they have, for personally owning a gun, whites had 36%, blacks had 24%, Hispanics had 15% of individuals in that race holding or owning a gun. This makes us wonder, are 24% of blacks white supremacists? It seems that the premise of the article is just widely mistaken. Finally, we have a interview done by Senator Warren where she calls for more regulation after the Gamestop fiasco. Here's her interview.
We need more regulation about market manipulation. And look, what has happened back and forth with GameStop, they are the ones who invented this kind of activity going on. Look at stock buybacks, for example. It was the case for decades in the United States that we said a company can't go out and buy its own stock for the purpose of inflating its price. In other words, stock prices should invest the value of the company, what investors think it's going to be able to make going forward, and how well the business is run. But starting near the end of the Reagan years, the SEC said, no, that's okay. Go buy your own stock and manipulate your own stock price. That's something that we should put a stop to. The SEC has some pending rules on stock manipulation. They need a broader look at how companies, how hedge funds manipulate the market, and then they need to put rules in place to stop it and grow a backbone to enforce those rules.
After spending much of my weekend looking into the whole GameStop fiasco and doing 2 stories on Friday and Thursday as part of my channel, looking into it, what I've come to the conclusion is that everything seems to be legit. I would be very skeptical of any legal ramifications for Robinhood or any other individuals involved in this incident. The main reason why Robinhood had to stop selling the stock is that DPC called for 100% collateral on the stocks due to the rapid increase in price. Obviously, we haven't been told what Warren's new regulations would be, but it seems the market worked exactly as we would want it to in this event. So we should be skeptical of any action that's taken afterwards. The only market manipulation that was done in this scenario was done by the Reddit group Wall Street Bets. That wasn't necessarily a bad thing. They saw that the stock was being overshorted and they took advantage of it. But this market manipulation was not being done by hedge funds. So if the goal is to prevent this from happening again, it wouldn't be targeting those hedge funds. It would be targeting the populace, not the 1%. And this is your February 1st Not So News. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and have a good one.